In the northern coast of Scotland, in Inverleigh, a quaint old town where the stone streets whispered with the wind, the annual Cairnstone Taste Festival brought together the country's most talented chefs. The historic stone monastery at the center of the town served once again as the competition grounds. The sky was gray, the sea roared in the distance, and the air carried a cool breeze laced with the scent of spices. Elena McRae was the youngest female Michelin-starred chef from Glasgow. She always wore her silver hair in a tight bun, and the intensity in her eyes could intimidate those who didn't know her. Her slender yet upright posture reflected the discipline she carried into the kitchen. What made her truly unique was how she reimagined traditional Scottish cuisine with modern touches. Inside her red coat, she carried only one recipe book, an heirloom from her mother. Her opponent in the competition, Lachlan Fraser, had made a name for himself in Aberdeen, the city where he was born and raised, with his rustic cuisine. With broad shoulders, a clean-shaven yet sun-kissed face, and piercing light blue eyes, he was the very image of a Highland man. He championed traditional methods and worked with ingredients he foraged from nature. In the kitchen, he moved like a storm, but the love he had for his food gave a tenderness to his hands. Their first encounter happened in the prep area behind the stage. Elena's eyes caught the skill in the way Lachlan handled the black pepper. Lachlan, in turn, watched the elegance with which she held her knife, like it was a blade of grass. Their eyes met, a brief pause. Then both slipped on their masks of professionalism. "Are you ready?" Elena asked, her tone sharp yet curious. "As ready as I can be. The better the competition, the more ready I am," Lachlan replied with a smile. "I hope you push me." The competition began. The first day was themed seafood. Elena presented Scottish salmon with a citrus glaze, while Lachlan adapted a recipe he had learned in his village using hand-caught scallops. The judges were impressed but had not yet made their decision. Everyone was focused on the next day, main course with heirloom ingredients. That night, Elena was staying at a historic inn near the monastery. By chance, Lachlan was there too. They met by the shared fireplace, each sipping their drinks. Their eyes collided again. This time, it was longer, quieter. "Did your mother teach you that recipe?" Lachlan asked carefully. "Did you examine my recipe book?" "Number. But the flavors? It felt like something created by someone missing a part of themselves." Suddenly, it became clear that something else was growing beneath the competition between them. They spoke the same language, the language of emotions conveyed through food. The second day of the competition began early in the morning. The sky was leaden gray, and the streets were covered with dew. Elena, as usual, had woken up early and ventured out to the bakery on the edge of town to buy fresh bread. Luck was on her side. She was at the front of the line. As she entered, the air was filled with the scent of buttery scones and freshly brewed coffee. Just as she was about to pay, the door behind the bakery opened and Lachlan walked in. "Well, looks like my rival's up early," he said with a smile. "I couldn't sleep," Elena replied. "My head's full of recipes." "Mine's full of the past," Lachlan murmured. Elena was struck by his words, but she didn't press him further. They sat on the stone bench in front of the bakery, sipping their coffees. For the first time, there was not a silent competition between them, but a calm sense of closeness. Elena had lost her mother in a car accident years ago. Since that day, cooking had been the only way she could communicate with her. The recipe book was filled with her mother's handwriting. Each recipe came with small notes, memories, and dates in the margins. That book was both Elena's compass and her armor. She couldn't trust people easily. In the kitchen, she felt safe because there were rules. It was those rules that had helped her survive. Lachlan had grown up without a mother from a young age, clinging to life by working alongside his father in fishing. But his true passion had begun in the kitchen. He learned from his father how to clean fish and which type of wood fire was best suited for each kind of meat. Lachlan's cooking was the result of his deep respect for nature. He was a solitary man, but within his silence, there was warmth. Not for everyone, but he was waiting to open up to someone. Each day of the competition focused on a different theme. On the third day, the theme was farm to table. Elena visited a local goat farm and milked the goats herself. Lachlan had taken her there, and shared how he had formed a bond with the farm during his childhood. On the way back, a heavy rain started, and as they searched for shelter, they ended up inside an abandoned greenhouse. For the first time, Elena laughed. Her hair was wet, and her bun had come undone. Lachlan saw her for the first time, unguarded. "You know," Elena said, "maybe winning wasn't as important as I thought. Not until I met you." Lachlan remained silent, but his eyes welled up. In that moment, if the emotions he couldn't express had turned into food, perhaps it would have been the most delicious soup in the world. That evening, Elena accidentally slipped with the knife and cut her finger. Lachlan was immediately by her side, wrapping her finger in a bandage. For the first time, Elena felt this close to someone. They were rivals in the competition, but on the stage of life, they were now companions. The next morning, when Elena entered the kitchen, Lachlan had secretly left a small note on her counter. "Today's dish couldn't possibly be more beautiful than you." Elena folded the note and tucked it into her recipe book. She never showed it to anyone, but she folded it deep into her heart. On the 5th day of the competition, the judges surprised the contestants with a new challenge. They asked them to work together to create a dish. This unexpected task put Elena and Lachlan in the same kitchen. At first they were tense, but then they found a rhythm. Lachlan prepared the wood fire while Elena worked on perfecting the balance of the sauce. When their eyes met, it was no longer just competition between them. There was admiration. They presented the dish together: smoked duck breast, lavender mustard sauce, and wild blueberry barley pilaf. The judges were in awe, but they weren't looking at the judges. They were looking at each other. Just as everything seemed perfect, the producers of the competition requested a private meeting with Elena. They presented her with an offer, a contract to become the head chef at a prestigious restaurant in Paris after the competition. Elena's mind was in turmoil. This offer was the very thing she had dreamed of for years. But Inverleigh, the town, and Lachlan were no longer just stops along her journey. That night, as she gazed out at the sea with eyes filled with uncertainty, Lachlan approached her. "What's wrong?" Lachlan asked, his voice low and concerned. "If I reach out, I could touch everything I've wanted for years. But at the same time, I might lose you," Elena confessed, her words raw and vulnerable. "I'm not just a recipe, Elena, but I'm not the one who will stop you either. If you're going, I'll cheer you on," Lachlan replied, his eyes unwavering. Elena had to make a choice. The final day of the competition arrived, and the streets of the town were bustling with excitement. The locals, the jury members, and important figures from the culinary world had all gathered to witness the grand finale. Elena and Lachlan, though not side by side, were preparing heart to heart. Both were facing each other as rivals for the last time. The theme of the final: roots. Each contestant was asked to create a dish inspired by their own past. Elena reinterpreted her mother's favorite dish: baked potatoes stuffed with mushrooms, served with a ginger-infused milk foam, light but profound. She completed the presentation with one of the notes from her recipe book: "True flavors come from the quietest memories." Lachlan, on the other hand, presented a simple but meaningful dish he used to make with his father: trout cooked over an open fire, accompanied by a creamy Scottish oat side and lemon butter sauce. With every bite, there was a silent bond between father and son that seemed to span years. The presentations were made, and the jury took their tastings, and the winner was announced: Elena. The room erupted in applause, but Elena didn't look to the crowd. Her eyes were on the other half of her heart: Lachlan. The man nodded at her in congratulations, a flicker in his eyes, though whether it was a tear or just a passing emotion, no one could tell. The next day, Elena had packed her suitcase. Her flight to Paris was in the evening. Before leaving the town, she wanted to take one last walk. As the Scottish wind tousled her hair, she found herself at the small harbor. And there he was. Lachlan stood among the boats, staring out into the distance. When Elena approached, he turned and met her gaze. "I came to say goodbye," Elena said. Lachlan smiled. "Then let me leave you a hello. Maybe one day you'll come back." Elena pulled her recipe book from her bag. She'd written a new recipe on the last page. The title read, "For Unfinished Loves." She added a note: "If this dish comes from your hands, no matter where I am, I'll know it by the taste." She extended the book to Lachlan. "Keep it. If I ever decide to come back, we'll cook it together." Lachlan took the book with both hands, pressing it to his chest as if it were the most precious thing. "I'll always be here." Elena turned, began walking away. With every step, her heart ached, but at the same time, she felt the excitement of a new life ahead. And in that moment, the wind carried Lachlan's voice to her ears like a whisper. Some recipes take time, but the best ones are always cooked with patience. 8 years later. 8 years. For Elena, time had passed both as slowly as a bullet and as recklessly as the wind. But now that day had come. For the first time in years, she was setting foot in Scotland again. A special invitation from the festival committee had given her the courage to reopen an old notebook. As she stepped off the plane, there was a familiar chill in the air. She remembered that night, that stormy competition, and the moment their eyes met for the first time. Her heart was beating with a rhythm it hadn't felt in years, and one thought echoed in her mind. What if he's here? What if he's no longer here? When she entered the festival hall, the crowd was buzzing with excitement. Her eyes searched for a familiar silhouette. Then the announcement came. Next jury member, the founder of Lock and Flame restaurant chain, a legend in Northern cuisine. Lachlan Fraser. The hall filled with applause and Elena's heart sank. Her knees felt weak. He was here. Lachlan walked onto the stage. His hair had turned gray, his gaze heavier, but he was still the same Lachlan. Elena couldn't take her eyes off him. She listened closely to his speech. It was as if every word carried a reproach, a story hidden within. After the presentation, he went backstage. But the sight that awaited him there shattered her. A woman, elegant, stylish, with a young child by her side. The child ran toward Lachlan. "Daddy!" Something inside Elena broke. She took a few steps back. Her heart was racing, her eyes welling up. She needed to leave now. That night, she collapsed onto the bed in her hotel room. "I'm too late," she whispered, but a voice inside her still reminded her of the unfinished story. The next day, they found themselves face to face at the jury meeting. Lachlan found her with his eyes. Elena smiled, but there was a faint light in her eyes. Lachlan approached her. "Elena," he whispered, "seeing you here, unexpected, but beautiful. I honestly got a little lost when I saw you," Elena said, avoiding his gaze. Lachlan paused, then he added, "I saw you yesterday, but then you ran away." Elena stayed silent. The questions that had been building in her eyes finally spilled out. "Are you married? Do you have a child?" Lachlan sighed. "Number not anymore. I was married. It lasted 5 years. We divorced. And the child isn't mine. She's my sister's. I'm raising her." Elena suddenly straightened in her seat. Her eyes welled up. "Why didn't you write all these years, Lachlan? Why did you stay silent?" Lachlan lowered his gaze. "Because you left, without saying anything, and I couldn't bring myself to accept losing you. Then time passed. At some point, everything felt too late. But I never forgot you, Elena. Every day I didn't speak to you, it felt like an incomplete recipe inside me." A tear slipped from Elena's eye. There was a broken hope in her voice. "Do you think there's still a recipe left for us to write together?" Lachlan locked eyes with her. "If you're still willing to try, I want my whole kitchen to be filled with you." In that moment, 8 years of wounds, silence, and longing all began to heal with just one look. They started to cry, quietly, deeply, as two hearts finally found themselves back on the same page. 2 years later, an evening in Tuscany, a small but heartfelt wedding nestled among olive trees. Guests gather around a table filled with dishes made from Elena's recipes. Lachlan stands to give a speech. "I fell in love with Elena for the first time during a cooking competition. That day, what I won wasn't just a prize. It was a recipe for a lifetime. And now there's nothing missing from my kitchen." Elena smiles. She takes his hand. Years later, at a festival, Lachlan and Elena are cooking on the festival stage with a little girl beside them. The girl raises her hand. "Daddy, you're shaking the pan too much." Lachlan laughs. Elena turns to the camera and whispers, "She's the toughest critic in the family now." Then she faces the camera and adds, Some recipes take years, but no dish cooked with love is ever too late. If you liked our new story, please like, share, and tap the bell to hear new stories told always.